There is substance, I guarantee you, with these 34 bills. Chair recognizes the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Walden from Oregon, 5 minutes for an opening statement.
These 34 on top of the other 24 on top of the other 6 or 7, we're going to have our hands full of good legislation. Because today marks our third and final legislative hearing this spring aimed at advancing targeted, timely, and bipartisan legislative solutions to help combat the opioid crisis. This committee has already been instrumental in working in a bipartisan manner to devote a record, let me underscore, a record amount of federal resources toward the opioid epidemic, namely through passage of the CARA and 21st Century Cures Act last Congress. My colleague here, Fred Upton, led the effort with Diana to get that done. This hearing continues the work to address the crisis that's impacted virtually every neighborhood, every community, and so many families across our country. You know, at roundtables I've done in my district across Oregon, most recently in Pendleton and Madras, I've met with people on the front lines of this fight, and with those who have lost a friend, lost a child, lost a sister, lost a loved one, lost a neighbor. These meetings have been crucial to my efforts to put forth concrete solutions to stem the tide and save lives. And I'm not alone doing these roundtables around the country. With more than 100 Americans estimated to die every day from opioid overdoses, we simply have to do everything within our power. We must continue to push forward, and I would respectfully ask everyone involved, stakeholders, members of Congress alike, to push beyond our comfort zones and think creatively and boldly about how we can help, because the status quo is simply not acceptable. The unprecedented scope of this crisis requires an unprecedented response, and that's what we're able to provide at the Energy and Commerce Committee. To that end, over the span of 2 days, we'll consider 34 bills from members on both sides of the aisle. These bills have a common theme. They seek to improve the roles Medicaid and Medicare can play in helping combat this crisis. This marks the largest numbers of bills noticed in a legislative hearing before this committee. But the number and scope of the bills helps underscore how important this topic is to all of us and how many good ideas there are to help patients. While considering this many bills does require some extra work on behalf of the staff and our members, I think we should see this as not an inconvenience, but rather as an opportunity. Just look at how many promising ideas there are to help patients who are served by these two programs, who represent roughly 1 in 3 Americans. Certainly, both programs play key roles in identifying at-risk beneficiaries, providing treatment, and decreasing overdose deaths. The bills we will consider today cover a range of important issues, including provisions to remove barriers to treatment, improve data to identify and help at-risk patients, provide incentives for greater care coordination, and enhanced care. Many of the bills before us build on efforts in Medicaid and Medicare that are already yielding positive benefits for patients and reducing dependency or misuse of opioids. As we move forward, we look forward to stakeholders and others providing feedback on these proposals. The input of the Congressional Budget Office will also help shape our decision-making on several pieces of legislation before us today. But our aim remains the same: moving through committee in regular order to advance legislation to the House floor before the Memorial Day recess. That is our goal. We have seen announcements in sister committees recently as they're also developing and advancing legislation, and we look forward to continuing our work with them to get a robust, bipartisan package of proposals to the White House for signature of the President in the coming months. The urgency of the crisis demands an urgent response, and the challenges facing our communities demand action now. So I'd like to thank our witnesses for taking time to share their expertise with us today and tomorrow, and for members on both sides of the aisle for making this fight a top priority. With that, I'd yield the balance of my time to my friend and colleague from Tennessee, Ms. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And